political parties. But the question is this, as we get to the last break and finish this, the question of all these coalitions and being built, it's sort of supposed to show, well, political supremacy, 1, 2, but also importantly, to hold those agreements together of what we've agreed we will do once we cross on this other side. Is any of these things that people are signing everywhere, everyone is signing documents, do they hold water after a president actually walks into office?
Actually, even before we go there, these agreements are meaningless. They create a false impression that these agreements are, power sharing agreements. They are not. If you look at those agreements, there's nothing to share. I mean, I think there's the agreement between Jubilee and ODM, maybe there's a power sharing. But these agreements that all of the parties are signing, there's absolutely nothing to share. It's an intention, and I think Prof will agree with me, an intention to work together. It's a PR exercise that, we have created a political behemoth. But there is nothing in substance in these agreements.
I seem to agree with Ahmed Nasir on this point, that framework agreements contemplated by the Political Parties Act only express an intention as set out under the Political Parties Act. And that is why there should be framework agreements that provide in general terms how power would be shared, and they talk about percentage 20, 30, 40. They do not in any way and cannot in any way compel the sitting president of a country to act in the manner proposed and or prescribed. Remember, these are good faith agreements. Under Article 132 of the Constitution, the president as chief executive has an obligation to all Kenyans, guided by Article 10 of the Constitution, guided by the values of this nation, to form an all-inclusive government that takes into account all the principles of propriety.
Prof raises a very good point.
Yeah, yes.
These agreements are not binding on the incumbent president, because constitutionally you cannot tie his hand to share power in a certain predetermined manner.
Yeah. So why are we doing them?
This is a PR exercise. I think this is a PR exercise.
Just hoping that you're a gentleman and you'll believe you'll do the right thing. But essentially, these are things that are up for grabs. I would love to go to court. I love that. Declare some of them unconstitutional. You cannot compel a sitting president to act in a manner.
But you can hear at least that the legal advisor of ODM is giving notice.
No.
To these parties.
I'm just saying that you can't overreach. Right. You can't tie the hands of a president through these framework agreements. They are loose agreements, and the best will come out of the gentleman sitting there saying, we talked about this and this is how it is. But when push comes to shove, of course, we are watching.
All right, let's ask questions of people who are watching tonight. And one, I think, goes to Amenasi. Regarding state capture, the, quote, original Jubilee Brigade, you included, are culpable, he says. It's a case of chicken coming home to roost. How do you respond to that?
No, I think we have made the point that Jubilee's lifespan was 2, the first 5 years and the second 5 years. I think the first 5 years basically was a continuation of, the Kibaki administration, implementation of the constitution, and I think institutions were working very well. But, state capture arises when power is not constrained, when power is not limited. And the last 4 years, what we had is power of a president that was not constrained. He could do what he wants. He could appoint whom he wants. He could engineer he could engineer the removal of anybody he wants. The opposition were part of him, and his government, the guys who came with him to power, were out of government. That is the problem that faced this country the last 4 years. Unlimited executive power by one person.
All right.
With the help of his brother, of course.
Okay. Senior Counsel, Professor Ojienda, since the handshake, the cost of living, I think, has gone up. The loan secured for BBI would have been enough to subsidize on some of these commodities that are currently expensive. Lack of priority has made the current regime to mismanage resources, and ODM is right at the center of that. How did you respond to that?
I think the handshake brought a lot of leverage. The handshake opened doors for partnerships. The handshake brought in new projects. The handshake brought in goodwill. The handshake we are seeing, well, he calls them Chinese loans. We are seeing development right in the city, thanks to the handshake, and not just in the city. In the areas of health, we have a number of now level 5 hospitals all over in many cities. In the area of education, we even have a new system. Now we have a new system of education. I know he doesn't like it much, but I've noted today that even as we transition during this period, there's a change in the manner that we play politics. And that change is because in the new dispensation, we are going to have BBI come back as an item so that we can disperse government in the manner proposed under BBI.
Well, how doesn't my friend knows that BBI will come back? Do you know how the court will rule?
After we...
Because we are hearing rumors that some people of certain political position know how the court will rule. Are you one of them?
No, I'm just a prudent lawyer. And I know that BBI will come back.
Last thoughts, Prof. And I want to speak to around the question that I'm seeing tonight, and I'll try and capture all that. The question of the responsibility of ODM in the last 5 years, in terms of how does ODM going to define itself with arrangement getting to Jubilee and whatever the handshake is, how does ODM define itself in this election? Is it still the party on the sidelines, or is it still an enabler of a regime?
I think ODM as a political party stands on a strong pedestal. In this entire framework, coalition framework, ODM is a main partner, is a pillar. And you know that ODM stands on one side, of course you have UDA on the other side, with a majoritarian subscription of membership. ODM will be strong going into this election and after. I can tell you, James, that we will have a majority in Parliament, both in National Assembly and in Senate.
I think my learned friend again doesn't answer the question. ODM, in terms of the election, is the incumbent. ODM is the defender of the status quo. ODM will run on the record of Jubilee of the last 4 years. And that is why I think that Deputy President cleverly sees or is selling himself as the agent of change. Because the last 4 years, ODM was in power. Yes, ODM was in power. They are incumbent, If you look at the Prime Minister's, campaign, he talks about, the good things the president has done, and he said he will continue. And I think the word he said is he will follow his footsteps. Fatanyao. And I think that is very important for Kenyans. And that's why my learned friend is saying, even the BPI, which was unpopular, which will divide the country, which will destroy, a lot of constitutional issues, which we have spent 14 to 20 billion shillings wasting, will come back. I think that's the biggest threat the voters should see.
Let me say this, James, just in brief response. Jubilee was in power. ODM was an enabler of good things that were done by His Excellency the President. I think we must acknowledge the President.
What about the bad things? What about the bad things?
No. Which bad things?
I mean,
I think
like state capture.
I think state capture.
Like arresting people on Fridays, keeping them, all those things. I mean,
That was Jubilee. That was not ODM. Yeah. ODM was on the
in
side
Epla,
defending.
in Epla.
No. ODM was defending individual rights.
Yes.
We stand for individual rights.
Right.
We speak against violations. We go to court.
And that's what ODM will stand by.
We are reformists.
10 seconds. Who's winning this election?
Of course, it's obvious. Baba.
Baba is winning the
I
election.
think it's Baba.
I do I need to ask you the same question?
No, I think we know. My vantage point is always the elections for 2017.
Yes.
Uhuru won by 1.4. Raila is underperformed by 15 to 20%.
Now that he talks about that,
yes.
The 1.4, you can split the 1.4 into half.
Right.
Because we've now gone to the mountain.
Where in the mountain? Where?
What do you mean, where in the mountain?
Where in the mountain?
I'll allow him to make his final point.
You're not seeing the numbers.
You're
not seeing the numbers. Are you seeing the numbers?
So, Baba is winning.
Baba is winning. Is that even a question, James?
It's important. It's important for me to ask.
No. Can I say?
It's important for me to ask.
They were saying Baba is winning 2013. They said Baba is winning 2017. Every time you are winning.
Once the school has confirmed, we've been winning.